The untold story of Airbnb, from cereal boxes to a $100 billion empire. What if I told you that one of the most valuable hospitality companies in the world, worth more than Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt combined, was once so broke? Its founders had to sell cereal boxes just to survive. This is the untold story of Airbnb, a company born out of desperation, mocked by investors, almost wiped out by a global pandemic, and yet reborn as one of the great business success stories of our time. Our story begins in San Francisco, 2007. Two roommates, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, were designers, creative, ambitious, but broke. Rent was due, and they didn't have the money. At the same time, a major design conference was coming to town, and hotels were fully booked. That's when Joe turned to Brian and said, "What if we just turned our apartment into a bed and breakfast for the weekend?" They bought 3 air mattresses, laid them out on the floor, and promised guests not just a place to sleep, but also breakfast in the morning. They called it Air Bed and Breakfast. 3 people showed up, each paying $80. It wasn't glamorous, but it covered the rent. Most people would have stopped there. But Brian and Joe saw a bigger opportunity. If travelers were willing to sleep on the floor in a stranger's apartment, maybe they'd also be willing to rent out a spare bedroom, a couch, or even an entire home. The seed of Airbnb was planted. The two knew they couldn't build a tech company alone. They needed a coder. So they invited Nathan Blecharczyk, Joe's old roommate and a programmer, to join as the third co-founder. The trio set out to build a website that would let anyone list their home, connect with travelers, and get paid. The idea sounded simple, but execution, that was a nightmare. At first, nobody took them seriously. Who in their right mind would pay to sleep in a stranger's house? The mainstream reaction was simple. This is dangerous. It'll never work. Investors laughed at them. Out of the first 15 venture capitalists they pitched, all 15 said no. Some refused to even meet.
Ow.
Meanwhile, the site barely worked.
Else.
Listings were scarce. Guests weren't booking, and the team was running out of money. By 2008, they were broke. They maxed out credit cards, racked up thousands in debt, and lived on cheap food. Joe later admitted they even ate expired cereal to save money. Then came the stunt that would save them. It was election season in the U.S., Obama versus McCain. To make cash, the founders came up with an insane idea: buy cheap cereal, repackage it in collectible boxes, and sell them as novelty items. They called them Obama OS, the cereal of change, and Cap'n McCain-S, or Maverick in every bite. The boxes sold for $40 each. At first, it sounded ridiculous, but somehow it worked. They sold more than 800 boxes, making $30,000. That cereal box hustle didn't just pay off their debts. It proved something important. These founders were relentless. They would do whatever it took to survive. Armed with their cereal box story, the team applied to Y Combinator, Silicon Valley's most prestigious startup accelerator. At first, Y Combinator's founder, Paul Graham, dismissed the idea. He didn't believe people would ever open their homes to strangers. But when he heard about the cereal boxes, he changed his mind. He realized, if these guys can sell cereal boxes during an election, they can figure out how to make this business work. Airbnb was accepted into Y Combinator in 2009. They got $20,000 in funding, mentorship, and access to Silicon Valley's investor network. But money alone wasn't enough. They had to fix their biggest problem: trust. At its core, Airbnb was asking people to do something radical: let complete strangers into their homes. And for travelers, it meant staying in a stranger's home, with no guarantee of safety or quality. That's why Airbnb's early growth was so slow. The breakthrough came when they introduced user profiles, ratings, reviews, and a secure payment system. Hosts and guests could verify their identities, leave feedback, and build reputations. Trust, piece by piece, was built into the platform. By 2011, Airbnb had crossed 1 million nights booked. By 2012, that number was 10 million. Investors who once laughed at the idea were suddenly begging to get in. Venture capital poured in, and Airbnb expanded globally. By 2015, there were over 1.5 million listings worldwide. Travelers loved it. It was cheaper than hotels, and it offered unique experiences. You weren't just booking a room, you were booking a lifestyle, living like a local. But success brought new problems. Hotels hated Airbnb. They saw it as unfair competition. Cities began to push back, accusing Airbnb of driving up rents, reducing housing supply, and skirting hotel taxes. In places like New York, Berlin, and Paris, regulators cracked down. Some cities banned short-term rentals entirely. Meanwhile, horror stories began to surface. Trashed apartments, scam listings, even criminal activity. Airbnb scrambled to implement new safety policies, background checks, and a $1 million host guarantee. It worked, but the criticism never fully went away. And then came the biggest crisis of all. In early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shut down global travel almost overnight. Within weeks, Airbnb's revenue collapsed by 80%. The company was bleeding money. Bookings were canceled, refunds piled up, and hosts panicked. To survive, Airbnb laid off nearly 25% of its workforce, about 1,900 employees. For a moment, it looked like Airbnb might not make it, but once again, the founders adapted. Instead of waiting for international tourism to return, Airbnb pivoted. They promoted local getaways, cabins, beach houses, countryside retreats. They also launched Airbnb experiences, offering online cooking classes, music lessons, and cultural exchanges over Zoom. These moves bought them time. By mid-2020, demand for local stays was soaring. People weren't flying across the world, but they were escaping the cities for nearby trips. Airbnb survived. In December 2020, just months after nearly collapsing, Airbnb stunned the world by going public. Its initial valuation, nearly $100 billion? That made Airbnb more valuable than the world's largest hotel chains combined. Despite not owning a single hotel, for Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecharczyk, it was the ultimate vindication. They had gone from broke designers selling cereal boxes to billionaires. Airbnb's story is about more than just business. It's about resilience, about taking a crazy idea, pushing through rejection, and reinventing yourself in the face of disaster. It's proof that even when everyone tells you you're crazy, persistence and creativity can change the world. And it's a reminder that success is never final. Airbnb still faces battles from regulators, from angry neighbors, from competitors like Booking.com and Vrbo. But it's already transformed the way millions of people travel. From 3 air mattresses on a living room floor, 2 cereal boxes, to a $100 billion IPO. Airbnb shows just how thin the line is between collapse and billions. The same story repeats in business again and again. And next time, we'll dive into another company that almost didn't make it. OpenAI's ChatGPT, a project that struggled with money, politics, and skepticism, before suddenly exploding into a global phenomenon that might change the future of humanity itself. Because in business, as in life, the difference between 0 and billions often comes down to one bold idea.